received a lot of criticism from Labour MPs, particularly on the left of the party and the Green Party and the Lib Dems and all that sort of thing. So you could say it's embarrassing. But if you're the Prime Minister of the UK, what else can you do? You don't have much choice than to have a good relationship with the US president. That's been the case ever since the Second World War, really.
From the economic impact of the war to which parties the public thinks are pro and anti-Donald Trump, to whether we should do more to thank military personnel for their service. And here to help, I'm always thankful for their service, it's the Times columnist Libby Purvis. Hello, Libby.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good to speak to you as always. And Times columnist and leader writer Seb Payne. Hello, Seb.
Hello, Hugo. So I'm speaking to you remotely today for a rare occasion, not beside you nestling in the studio.
Nestling is a little bit creepy, but it's great to have even your voice. And the fact that neither of you are here allows me to imagine you both, for some reason, in military uniform, just in keeping with how it's working. I think Libby would, of course, I think in the RAF I can see Libby, and Seb, a boy from the Navy.
Royal Navy.
Royal Navy. Well, I suppose you do have that Navy hinterland, don't you? Yeah. Well, maybe you're both in the Navy.
Boy
then.
in the Navy. Thank you, Hugo. I'll take that.
You'll take that. Yeah. It's yeah. Well, you have to because
I think Seb would be in intelligence services ashore somewhere.
Well, yeah, but that means he'd have to wear his own clothes. Actually, you know, that does work. Polo neck jumper, delivering milk tray, all that. Let's crack on. I want to talk about the war, but first of all, through the domestic and indeed economic prism. The looming domestic problem in the government's in-tray is of course the impact of the war on our economy. Donald Trump posted on Truth Social saying short-term oil prices, which will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iranian nuclear threat is over, is a very small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace. Only fools would think differently. I shan't spoil your fun by telling you which words and letters there were in capitals, but let's just agree that it was a lot of them. I asked Times columnist and economist Paul Johnson earlier if he agreed.
They're quite a big price to pay. I mean, whether it's the right price is something for the politicians to decide, but higher oil prices, that's going to have a significant negative effect on the economy. That'll probably, if it's maintained there, it'll take, I'd have thought, at least half a point off growth this year. That's going to create problems for the public finances, and it's going to make us all worse off.
Well, look, coming to the fact, Seb, of whether or not it's a price worth paying in a moment, it is nonetheless a heavy price. It's bad for all of us. It's bad for Keir Starmer's government because their big plan in 2026 was to lower bills and make us all feel better off. Do you have a bit of sympathy for them?
I sort of do in this instance. There's reason to and to not have sympathy. The reason to have sympathy is that Starmer's going to find himself in exactly the same position Liz Truss was in 2022 when there was an energy price shock following the war in Ukraine. And one of the reasons, apart from her own sheer incompetence, that her premiership collapsed was the fact that she had to do this massive energy relief package that cost £100 billion. It wasn't properly scorecarded. The Office for Budget Responsibility in the market threw their hands in the air and said, oh, we don't like this. Well, the rest is history, as they say. So I think we're really much back into that situation. The problem is that our public finances are in a much worse state than they were then. It's the idea that we can find £100 billion down the back of the country's sofa to try and prop up energy prices is something for the birds at the moment. So Keir Starmer's hinted that there may have to be some kind of energy price relief, but how much that is, where it's going to come from and how it's going to work is kind of unfathomable. Now, people from the Trump administration have been out and about this morning saying the oil shock's only going to last weeks, not months. It'll all be over very soon. Again, it'd be quite nice to know what plan there is for that, because it doesn't feel as if everything's just going to calm down and we go back to matters as normal. So I have a lot of sympathy for the Starmer government on that front, because this is not their fault. And if they do have to do a big intervention, it was not, as we now know, the UK was not involved in the reason for that. The reason I don't have sympathy is that the government's been in office about 18 months and it's whacked up green levies significantly, which have piled on extra taxes to energy bills while trying to ramp up renewables. That's Ed Miliband's big strategy. But, they've equivocated on North Sea oil and the new Rosebank field, for example. There's things you could have done there. There's things you could have done in terms of expediting more nuclear, but all that stuff takes time. So, it's a difficult situation, but I don't really know how the government's going to get out of this if this disruption goes on for months and if the oil price go high. I mean, oil's gone above $110 a barrel this morning. If that remains high for a long time, then all of our prices are just going to go up and up and up, which means no more interest rate cuts, means inflation's going to soar again, and we're going to come back to the next budget, and it's going to be another dumpster fire.
Libby, I think Seb's right, but I also think it's going to strongly impact how people feel about this war. I mean, there seems to be sort of general public hostility to it anyway. I think it's going to get all the stronger because, I mean, even with the Ukraine war, yes, it pushed up our bills, but at least it wasn't our supposed ally who had begun it. With this, it's sort of, I mean, it sort of is. And I don't know, do you feel like I feel like almost like a bit robbed, as in we've been through a sort of a bad time. We were supposed to be on the cusp of a good time, and now it's been kind of snatched away from us.
Oh yes, I think so, and I think Seb's right. I think the fact that so many of these green levies have been put onto domestic and business bills is going to react. Is going to be a very bad response towards our own government. Though actually, at the moment, Keir Starmer is actually not doing too badly. He is at least trying to create some kind of friendly link, some kind of sub-special relationship, remains of the special relationship with Trump, which I think is good, because actually you cannot really have two aggressive, self-aggrandizing lunatics. But I mean, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be politically difficult. It's going to be very difficult for business. It's going to be difficult for individuals. You know, say petrol prices already shot up now. I don't know where Seb got the, what is it, 100 billion cost of Liz Truss's thing. I read 50 billion, but it's still absolutely enormous.
I think it was originally.
I don't think they can dive in as deeply as she did, certainly.
I think it was the Truss scheme. It was originally estimated that it was going to be 150 billion, but it came in as sort of much lower in the end. But it was eye-watering sums.
A mere 50 billion, yeah, but I mean that you know, they don't want to go throwing that money at it straight away. So they're in a really difficult position, and I actually happen to think that Starmer for once is somebody to be quite pleased about, you know, because I think he is trying to cool things. The person who's an absolute disgrace in this whole business of Trump's new war is Tony Blair, you know, who claims that he didn't intend it to be leaked, what he just happened to be said at a private meeting. You know, how long's the man been in politics and diplomacy?
Oh yeah, he was. I think he was speaking at he was being interviewed by Robert Peston. I think it was a Jewish news event, and it was supposed to be, I think, Chatham House rules, but it did leak out pretty swiftly.
Come on, yeah, how long has he been in politics? You know,
I sort of think
it's going to leak.
I sort of think, yeah, if you say something on a stage in front of loads of journalists, then whether it's supposed to be secret or not, you can pretty much assume it's going to get out there, I would have thought. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. And therefore, it is a deliberate attack on Keir Starmer, which I think is disgraceful.
That's interesting. I'm sure we'll be talking about that a bit more. Speaking of Starmer and his relationship with Trump, the two men spoke for the first time in 8 days last night. Downing Street said they'd discussed the situation in the Middle East, no surprise there, and military cooperation between the UK and the US as well. This came just a day after Trump said America didn't need Britain supporting the conflict. Writing on Truth Social, we don't need people that join wars after we've already won. Where to even begin with that, Seb? I mean, I'm not quite sure they have, as such, already won. But I mean, that would have been an awkward call. I'm just sort of, I tell you what, I've been struggling over the last week with this idea that Starmer must be on the back foot of this criticism from Trump, because there's a bit of me that wonders, in terms of where he's trying to position himself, in terms of the wake of the Greens surging in the polls, he sort of doesn't really want to be sort of Trump's best buddy anymore, anyway.
No, he doesn't. And I mean, the only thing that's embarrassing, I guess, is the amount of effort Keir Starmer has put in to try and get those ties as close as possible, which you received a lot of criticism from Labour MPs, particularly on the left of the party and the Green Party and the Lib Dems and all that sort of thing. So you could say it's embarrassing. But if you're the Prime Minister of the UK, what else can you do? You don't have much choice than to have a good relationship with the US president. That's been the case ever since the Second World War, really. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that for Starmer. I mean, the whole thing is slightly dancing on the head of a pin, because nobody asked the UK to be involved in the first wave of strikes, which is where the debate was. It's then more about, could the UK have been more ready for the kind of retribution from Iran that hits Cyprus and the other bases in the region, given there's a kind of timeline that suggests the UK did know this was coming and could have got HMS Dragon or HMS Duncan or the Prince of Wales war carrier into the region sooner, although of course that would have indicated that when this was coming. And for Keir Starmer's domestic position, I think you're right, Hugo, it does help him because there's some polling out over the weekend that showed that people are pretty happy with Keir Starmer's position on this, that they think the UK is right to defend its assets, but shouldn't have been involved in the strikes and shouldn't be involved now. And that's kind of exactly where the government is. And the problem with Donald Trump is he's so precarious and he just flips like a switch that you can't bet the house on that. And there's no US president like that. And Ben Judah, was a foreign office advisor until quite recently, has been out and about talking about this and has given many examples of how Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, was in a room with our foreign secretary, would go out, take a phone call from Trump and come back in, and then everything would have changed. So if you're in that situation, you kind of just got to roll with the punches on this, which is what I think Keir Starmer has done. So I think that's kind of fine, and you've just got to kind of ride it out. But of course, it's a little bit awkward given the fact the king is supposed to be going to America for a nice state visit before too long.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the king in a moment, I promise. But Libby, with Starmer's, I guess, pushback against the Americans, pushback against what Trump wants him to do, do you think he should be shouting it more loudly? Because it's a very, very Keir Starmer thing to do, to be involved in a sort of what could be a sort of costly political fight without really getting the benefit because he doesn't talk about it, if you see what I mean. Like he gets the criticism for making the difficult decision, but never gets the benefit for the fact that it might be the right decision in the long run.
I think that him constantly spouting out how he was right and he knows best would not be particularly helpful. I listened to Ed Davey this morning. I don't know whether you heard Ed Davey this morning, but he's shouting the odds and so on with really basically nothing to lose. None of us have got anything to lose by saying Trump is a deranged, aggressive lunatic, but I don't think it would help. Starmer has to behave in a prime ministerial manner. Now, there's two aspects of being prime ministerial. One is just being sort of massively effective and decisive and never making U-turns, and he's sort of failed at that. But the other bit of being prime ministerial is just not being the guy who's out there shouting for nothing in particular when there's nothing that will change. And so I don't think he should be making political capital out of it particularly. I think people would respect him more for just quietly getting on with it and hoping that we can get out of this without too much damage either to ourselves or to the relationship with the United States. Trump won't be around forever. He is for the moment, but he won't be forever.
Just to catch you up on some of that polling that Seb was talking about, this is new YouGov polling about where Britons think the main UK political parties stand regarding Donald Trump. 2/3 of British people describe themselves as being anti-Trump. 56% say they're very anti-Trump. 70% see Reform UK as being supportive of Trump. So I guess, as you were saying, Seb, Keir Starmer sort of positioning himself as not quite being that, probably does somewhat work in his advantage.